Hi, I'm Amy with Campus Integrity Group. My partner Amber and I decided to take a break from videos directed at schools and staff and focus on parent and caregiver advocacy. Our previous video addresses prevention and advocacy, and this is a real-life case study to further explain the important role parents play in creating safer schools. So what's the case? A Wisconsin high school dean was arrested on multiple charges of sex crimes against children, and it has triggered an uproar among parents who say school leaders dismissed warning signs and failed to alert authorities to at least one credible claim. The parents say administrators allowed a troubling pattern of predatory behavior to fester after they mishandled a tip from a senior at Sun Prairie West High School who had raised alarms about Roberts. Some more details on the case. The charges involve at least 3 child victims, according to the complaint. Prosecutors say that Robert bought alcohol for one of the victims in exchange for topless photos. Investigators found dozens of explicit photos of an early pubescent female in a secret folder on his Snapchat account. Text messages, obtained by police through a search warrant, appear to show Robert enticing a student to secretly meet up multiple times, as well as to send nude photos. The police department didn't become aware of this issue until the end of May, and around that time a school resource officer who worked for the police department had learned about allegations of misconduct. He said the department was informed by this school resource officer, not the school district. The dean was the 4th staff member charged with child-related crimes over the past decade. So those other 3. In April, Matthew, a former middle school teacher, was sentenced to 14 years in prison for possessing child pornography after he pleaded guilty and admitted to recording boys in the school bathrooms for at least 4 to 5 years. Lamont Crockett, who was a school resource officer, was sentenced to 4 years for child enticement in September of 2024. And then the last one is 2017, Brett Berryman, a former school janitor, was sentenced to 3 years in prison, also for possession of child pornography. This incident took place at Sun Prairie West High School in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. Here's a bit of a timeline. In April, an anonymous senior warned the school district in a letter that Robert's behavior toward at least one girl was disturbing. The senior said the dean followed the girl on social media, regularly texted with her, drove her around, often spent time with her in his office, and was constantly hovering around her. The student also said, "I am deeply concerned about the appropriateness of their relationship," and the student urged administration to investigate the matter thoroughly, saying it has long created an uncomfortable atmosphere at the school, which has 1,300 students. However, school officials found the claim to be unsubstantiated after Robert denied the allegations. Months later, on July 24th, Robert was arrested and charged with more than a dozen counts of possession of child pornography and child exploitation. So what went wrong? The anonymous tip in April from the student was initially unsubstantiated by district officials and no action was taken. Later, a former staff member flagged concerns that spurred the deeper investigation. The case raises questions about oversight, whistleblower protection, and reporting protocols inside the school and district. This also shows a risk of complacency, since multiple prior staff were implicated over the years, sounds more of a systemic concern than an issue with one case. Per the school district, in a quote that was in the media, "There are rare but deeply troubling instances when an individual violates the trust we've placed in them and the training we've had them engage in. However, many parents disagreed with that statement and said that the district was just trying to shift accountability." Several of the media stories quoted parents, and some of those quotes included, "School failures enabled abuse," triggered an uproar among parents who say school leaders dismissed warning signs and failed to alert authorities. "When are we going to do something about it? I don't want to wait until it's my kid." Continuous dismissive attitude. If not now, when? The parents expressed outrage and pressed for systemic change. and the community scrutinized the school over how earlier warnings were dismissed. So there are definitely some lessons to be learned here. The early warning signs were dismissed. Too often, anonymous reports from students or parents are brushed aside. This case with the dean shows us why those voices must be taken seriously, followed up on, and documented. Even when a report seems small or vague, it can be the first signal of something much bigger. There were internal oversight gaps. Schools can't rely on informal processes. Without clear protocols, audits, and protections for those who speak up, critical information slips through the cracks. Whistleblowers need to feel safe. If they're silenced, abuse can continue unchecked. And there were multiple prior incidents. When the same institution sees repeated misconduct cases, it's not an isolated problem, it's a systemic one. Patterns like this demand structural reform, not just case-by-case fixes. Parents and communities should insist on broader reviews whenever multiple cases surface. And parental pressure matters. In this case, parents demanded accountability, and that collective voice either drove or will drive change. Schools are much more likely to act when the parent community speaks with urgency and unity. It's proof that parental advocacy is a powerful tool. Parents play a key role in demanding accountability, and their collective voice can drive meaningful change when institutions might otherwise remain stagnant. And finally, transparency is essential. When schools share openly and communicate clearly, trust is built. When they fail to do so, that trust erodes, and regaining it can be extremely difficult. So let's talk about some strategies for how parents can drive change. Parents have tremendous power to shape how schools respond to misconduct and prevent future harm. By organizing collectively, parent groups can speak with a unified voice that schools cannot ignore. Demanding transparency, whether through access to policies, incident logs, or updates, keeps accountability alive. Public meetings and school board sessions give parents a platform to raise concerns directly, while engaging the media ensures that those concerns cannot be quietly dismissed. Pushing for stronger policies, external oversight, and whistleblower protections move schools beyond surface level fixes toward real reform. Most importantly, sustained pressure matters. When parents follow through beyond the initial crisis and stay engaged over time, they demonstrate to schools that safety, accountability, and student well-being must remain at the forefront. This is an example of an action plan that parents can take. When parents want to push for real change, having a structured plan makes the difference. So the first step is forming a small steering committee, a group that can stay organized, divide responsibilities, and keep the momentum going. Also, submitting formal demands, record requests, or FOIA petitions creates a paper trail and ensures concerns cannot be brushed aside. For example, you can request copies of misconduct policies, codes of conduct, Title IX procedures, and records of staff training. Mapping the district's existing policies and identifying gaps helps parents understand where the problems really lie. Parents should propose concrete solutions, not just raise the problems. For example, requiring regular reviews, mandating external oversight, or creating new accountability mechanisms. And finally, lasting change requires monitoring and follow-up. Parents who track progress, audit compliance, and keep communicating with the broader community show schools that this isn't a one-time demand, but a long-term expectation. And that wraps up today's video, which is available in our Learning Hub on our website. Remember also to check out our previous video on parent and caregiver prevention and advocacy, which includes how to recognize signs, monitor electronic communication, and having ongoing conversations with your children. There's a free version in our Learning Hub and a longer, more in-depth version in our marketplace. Thanks for watching.